I was standing under the white lights of a truck stop outside Amarillo, holding a cup of coffee I did not want, when I heard a man laugh inside my own kitchen. It came through the phone. I had called home, the way I always called home, near 11 at night, parked for my 10-hour break, just to hear my wife's voice before I climbed into the bunk. She picked up, and behind her, clear as the hum of those parking lot lights, a man laughed. Low, comfortable. The laugh of a man who has his boots off and his feet up in a house he thinks is his. I did not say a word about it. I asked her how the kids were. She said fine, sleeping. I told her to lock up, and she said she already had. And I said good night, and I love you, and she said it back, and I hung up, and I stood there in the cold with the diesel pumps ticking, and I did not move for a long time. I drive a truck for a living. 11 years on long hauls. Before that, local routes. Before that, I rode along with my own daddy. And the first thing they teach you, the thing that keeps you breathing, is that black ice does not look like anything. The road looks wet, same as always. It looks exactly like a road you have driven 1,000 times, right up until the trailer steps out behind you and you are sideways in the dark, and you never felt it let go. That laugh was the moment I understood my marriage had been black ice for a long time. It had looked wet, it had driven fine, and I was already in the ditch. I just had not felt it yet. Stay with me, because what I did with the next 40 days is the whole reason I am telling you this. I did not turn that rig around and drive home to do something I could not take back. I did something slower and harder, and in the end it saved my kids, my house, and the only good name I have ever owned. My name does not matter much, but I will tell you I am 51 years old, and I drive out of a small town west of Fort Worth, the kind of place with one stoplight and a feed store and a church on every other corner. I have been married for 22 years, 2 kids, a boy who is 16 and already talks about getting his own commercial license, which equal parts proud and scares me, and a little girl who is 9 and still leaves the porch light on for me when I am due home. If you are out there listening tonight, parked somewhere, or running a route, or just lying awake, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I would like to know who is riding along with me on this one. Let me tell you about the trust first, because if you do not understand how much I gave her, you will not understand what it cost when she threw it away. I married Tara when I was 29. She was a hometown girl, worked the front desk at a dental office, the kind of woman who remembered every patient's kids' names. We did not have money. We had a single wide and a payment on a truck and a plan. And I drove. Lord, I drove. The thing nobody tells you about long haul is that the miles are not the hard part. The hard part is the empty seat beside you for 3 days, and the bed at home you only see 2 nights a week. I missed birthdays. I missed her father's funeral by 6 hours because I was stuck at a way station in New Mexico. And I have never forgiven myself for that. And she told me she forgave me, and I believed her. I told myself the road was love. Every mile was a mortgage payment. Every night in a sleeper cab was my daughter's braces and my son's truck someday, and a roof that did not leak. When a man cannot be home, he tells himself that working himself half to death is the same as being there. It is not. I know that now. But I believed it for 22 years, and I want you to know I believed it with my whole heart. I will tell you about the porch light, because it is the thing I held on to out there in the dark. When my little girl was about 4, she got it in her head that if she left the porch light on, her daddy would always find his way home, no matter how far the run. Tara started it, told her it was true, and for years it was the sweetest thing in my life. I would come off a 4-day haul at 2 in the morning, dead on my feet, and I would top a rise on the county road and see that one yellow light burning on my porch. And I would feel something in my chest ease that no amount of sleep ever fixed. That light meant somebody was waiting. That light was the whole reason I drove. I want you to remember it, because it comes back at the very end of this, and by then it means something different than it did at the start. There were halls that nearly broke me, ice in the Rockies, a jackknife I walked away from outside Flagstaff that I have never told my wife about because I did not want her scared every time I left. I ate gas station food and slept in truck stop lots, and I did it gladly, every mile of it, because at the end of every run there was that porch light and the 2 kids under it, and the woman who I thought was keeping it on. A man can carry almost anything if he believes there is a warm house at the end of the road. The cruel part, the part I did not know yet, is that the house had been cold for a long time, and somebody else had been warming his feet at my fire. I have to tell you one more thing about the trust, because if I leave it out, I'm not being straight with you. About 4 years ago, I came home early once and found her crying at the kitchen table over her phone, and she shut it off too fast. And when I asked, she said it was an old friend going through a hard time. I let it go. I did not ask the name. A man who is gone 5 days a week learns not to ask too many questions, because the answers might be things he cannot fix from 1,000 miles away. So I closed that door without ever opening it. You will see, soon, why I should have opened it. Here is how the ice started to show. The phone first. For 22 years that phone sat anywhere. Then it started living face down, and it started coming to bed with her, charging on her side, screen turned away. She got a passcode she never used to have. When I asked, easy. She said there had been a scam going around, and the office made everybody lock their phones. Reasonable. Everything was always reasonable. Then the nights I called and she did not pick up. A book club on Tuesdays that I had never heard of in 22 years of marriage. A friend named Dana she suddenly spent every other evening with, except when I mentioned Dana to her sister at Thanksgiving. Her sister gave me a strange look and said she did not think Tara and Dana had talked in years. Then the money. I do not do the books like some men, but I know what is in the account because I am the one filling it. A charge at a steakhouse 2 towns over on a night she said she ate leftovers. A motel charge, $40, that she said was a mistake by the card company and she would get it reversed. A new dress I never saw her wear for me. Little drips. Every one with a reason. That is the thing about black ice and about a marriage going bad. Each single second of it looks like ordinary wet road. It is only the whole stretch, looked at together, that tells you the truth. There were smaller things, too. The kind a man files away without knowing he is filing them. A second coffee mug in the sink in the morning when I rolled in early. Washed and set in the rack before I could think about it. The recliner moved a few inches from where it always sat. The way furniture moves when somebody who is not you has been sitting in it. A smell in the living room that was not mine. Not strong, just a cologne that did not belong. There and gone like a truck passing in the other lane. And once my little girl, 9 years old and innocent as morning, looked up from her cereal and asked me if Mr. And then she caught herself and looked at her mama and changed it to, asked if we could get a dog. I did not understand it then. I filed it. Children see everything and understand almost none of it, and they carry the weight of the part they do not understand. And that is a thing no kid should ever have to do. And there was my son. This is the part that still sits heavy. About 2 months before the laugh, my boy got quiet with me. 16-year-old quiet, which I figured was just being 16. But once, on the phone, he started to say something. He said, "Dad, there's been a guy." And then his mama must have walked in the room because he changed it to "a guy at school" and got off the phone fast. I did not push. God help me, I did not push, because I did not want it to be true. And a man can talk himself out of almost anything when the truth is going to break his whole life in half. Then came the truck stop outside Amarillo, and the laugh, and the black ice finally let go. I want to be honest about that night. I sat in my cab and I shook, not from cold. I wanted to drive home right then, 800 miles, and walk in that door and see his face. I had the keys in my hand, and then 30 years of driving talked me out of it. Because here is what the road teaches you. When the trailer steps out and you are sliding, the one thing that kills you is jerking the wheel. You do not yank. You stay calm. You steer into it gentle. You let the truck come back to you. Panic is what puts you through the guardrail. So I put the keys down. I finished my coffee, and I started, very quietly, to think. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls from a rest area. The first was to a lawyer. The second, a few days later, was to a private investigator the lawyer recommended. And what those 2 told me, almost word for word, is the most important thing I can hand you tonight. So write it down if you have to. Do not confront. Not yet. Get quiet. And get organized. The lawyer was a woman in Fort Worth who had been doing divorce work for 26 years and had a voice that made the ground stop moving under me. I laid it all out. The phone, the book club, the motel charge, the laugh, my son almost saying a name. She listened to all of it, and then she told me some things about Texas that I did not know. And I'm going to share the shape of them. Though I want to be clear, I am no lawyer, and your state is its own animal, and you need your own attorney for your own life. This is just my story. She told me that in Texas, what you build during the marriage mostly belongs to both of you, but that a judge does not have to split it straight down the middle. She said the law lets the court divide things in a way that is just and right, and that what a person did to wreck the marriage is part of that. She said if one spouse takes money that belongs to the marriage and spends it on an affair, the court has a name for that, and it can tilt the division. She told me to find every dollar that had quietly walked out the door, the steakhouse, the motel, anything else I could trace, and put it in order, and say nothing. Then she asked me a question that changed everything. She asked who held the loan and the trial on my truck, the truck I drive, the truck that is my whole living. I told her it was in my name, that I had bought it before things went bad, that it was the tool I feed this family with. She got very quiet, the good kind of quiet, and she said, "Do not put one more marital dollar into it that you cannot document. Do not refinance it. Do not let anyone tell you to hand it over, because that truck is how you will keep eating, no matter how this ends. Protect the thing that earns. Everything else is a fight you can survive. Lose the thing that earns, and you lose the next 20 years too." Then she gave me the rules, and they are the same rules the investigator gave me, and they are the same ones I want you to carry. Do not move out of the house, because the day you pack a bag, you have told a story about who left the family, and you have walked away from your own kid's front door. Do not empty or freeze the joint account, because that makes you look like the bad actor, and a judge does not forget it. Do not confront her, because the second she knows you know, the evidence dries up and the stories get straight. Document everything. Get proof first, while she still thinks she is safe. So I drove my routes, and I became an actor I did not know I had in me. I want you to understand how hard that was, because some of you are living it right now. I called home every night with that same warmth in my voice. I asked about the book club and I said it sounded fun. I told her I missed her. I lay in my bunk 800 miles away, knowing that some nights when I called, a man with his boots off was sitting in my recliner, and I kept my breathing even, and I said I love you, and I meant the words even while they were killing me, because the day I slipped was the day I lost the whole case. I have backed a 53-foot trailer into a loading dock I could not see in a snowstorm. Nothing I have ever done with my hands was as hard as sounding happy on that phone. The investigator did the rest, and he did it clean. No tricks, no breaking in, nothing I would be ashamed to read out loud in a courtroom or to my own kids someday. He sat in public streets that anybody can park on. He watched, and inside of 3 weeks he had it. The man with the laugh was somebody I knew. He was her high school boyfriend. the closed chapter. The one who broke her heart at 18 and had moved back to town the year before. Divorced, looking to start over. And he had started over inside my house, in my chair, while I hauled freight to keep the lights on over both their heads. His name was the name my son had almost said. That was the worst week. Knowing it was an old flame. Knowing she had let him near my kids. Knowing my 16-year-old had been carrying that secret because he did not know how to tell his daddy on the phone from a truck stop. I called my boy that week, and I did not tell him what I knew, because a kid should never have to be the one who breaks his father's heart, and he should never have to choose between his parents. I just told him something I needed him to hear. I told him that no matter what was going on in that house, he would never, not once, get in trouble with me for telling the truth, and that it was not his job to protect any grown adult, including his mama, and that I loved him the same on his worst day as his best. He went quiet on the line, and then he said, "Okay, Dad," in a voice that cracked, and I had to pull the truck over because I could not see the road through what was in my eyes. That was the only time I cried in those 40 days. Once, in a rest area off Interstate 20, then I wiped my face and I got back to work. Because my kids needed me steady, and steady was the only thing I had left to give them. I had one bad scare while I was building all this. And I will tell you about it because it is exactly the kind of thing that trips a man up. I kept everything on a cheap second phone the lawyer told me to buy. Photos, the running list of charges, the investigator's notes. Nothing on the family computer. Nothing on my real phone where a curious thumb could find it. One night, I was parked at home, in the cab in my own driveway, going through it before bed. And Tara came out in her robe and knocked on the door of the truck to bring me a cup of coffee, which she had not done in 2 years. I had maybe 4 seconds. That phone went under the seat, and my real phone came up showing a load board before her face was even in the window. I thanked her for the coffee. I told her she did not have to do that. She smiled and said she just wanted to, and I smiled back. And my heart was running like a rig with no brakes on a downgrade. And after she went inside, I sat there a long time understanding how close the whole thing had come to falling apart over a kind gesture. After that, I kept that second phone in a lockbox bolted inside the truck, where my own house could not reach it. Keep your proof somewhere your own home cannot touch. That is not paranoia. That is just running a tight rig. I built the rest of the case the way you load a trailer, right? Slow and balanced and tied down. Every bank statement for 2 years. Every charge that did not belong, lined up by date. The steakhouse, the motels, a weekend at a lake cabin I was never at. Gifts from a men's store I never received. It came to a little over $9,000 of money that belonged to my family, spent on a man who was somebody else's mistake first. My lawyer looked at that list and she said, "Plain. This is the part that keeps your kids in their own beds." And the whole time I planned the one thing that mattered most. The schedule. The same schedule that had given them their opening was going to be the thing that closed it. Here is the twist. And I am not proud of how good I got at it, but I am not sorry either. I started feeding her a false schedule. Not lies that hurt anyone, just dates. I told her a run was going to keep me out an extra 2 days. I told her I would be back Thursday when the load actually delivered Tuesday. I watched, through the investigator, how the house filled up the second she thought I was 1,000 miles away. The man's truck in my driveway 40 minutes after I called to say I was held up in Oklahoma. She thought my absence was a wall she could hide behind. She never understood that I am the one who decides where this truck is and when, and that the wall was mine to move. There was a week that nearly broke me. About 10 days before the end, Tara went warm, all at once. She started picking up on the first ring. She put her phone face up on the counter again, like the old days. She told me she had been thinking we should take a trip when I had vacation coming. Just the 2 of us, down to the coast. That the kids were getting big and we never made time for each other. She told me I was the steadiest man she had ever known, and she did not say it enough. And I am a man who loved this woman for 22 years. And I sat in my cab with the phone warm against my ear, and I felt the whole case start to slide. The same sick feeling as a trailer stepping out. Maybe she was choosing me. Maybe the old flame had burned out. Maybe I could let all of it go and we could drive down to the coast and start over. For 3 days I let myself believe it. Then the investigator sent me a photograph. The warm week, the coast trip week, the you're so steady week. In it, the man's truck was back in my driveway at 1 in the afternoon. The same hour she had told me on the phone she was missing me. I understood then what the warmth was. It was not a second chance. It was sand thrown over black ice so I would not see it and slow down. She was keeping me comfortable so I would not look up before she was ready to leave. I deleted the wobble out of my chest. I stopped letting the warmth touch me, and I got back to work. I want to sit on that for a second, because that week is the one that takes men down. Not the betrayal, the fake reconciliation. A liar who is about to leave you will very often turn sweet right before the end. Because a comfortable husband does not check the bank statements, does not call the lawyer, does not look up from the road. The kindness is not kindness. It is a blanket thrown over your eyes. If the coldest person in your life suddenly goes warm for no reason you can name, do not let it melt your good sense. Be grateful you wrote everything down while your head was clear, and keep your foot where it was. I have seen the photograph that proved the pot roast was a performance, so to speak, and I will never again mistake a smokescreen for a sunrise. Here is how it ended, and I will tell it plain, because plain is the only way it is true. My lawyer had the divorce ready. We picked the day with care. I told Tara I had a long run that would keep me out through the weekend, and I asked her, easy, what she had planned. And she said, just a quiet few days, maybe Dana's. I knew exactly what a quiet few days meant by then. But first I did the most important thing, which had nothing to do with her at all. My kids. I arranged for my son and my daughter to be at my sister's place that weekend. A couple hours away, a lake she loves, cousins, a dog, the whole thing. My little girl was thrilled. My son looked at me when I dropped them off, and he did not ask anything, but he held onto the hug a half-second longer than a 16-year-old usually does. And I think he understood that his daddy was finally doing something about it, and that he was not going to have to be the one to do it. I got both my kids 100 miles away from any of it, safe, out of range. That mattered more to me than anything that happened to the 2 adults who caused it. Then I came home a day early, not to do anything but be there, calm, in my own house, when it was served. I did not kick a door. I did not raise a hand or my voice. I have never needed to see a man's face break to know a job is done. I parked my truck where I always park it. I walked in my own front door, and the man with the laugh was sitting in my recliner with his boots off, and my wife came out of the kitchen, and the 2 of them looked at me like the road had just gone sideways under them, because for once it had. And it was not me who was sliding. I did not say much. I said, "You are both going to want to be sitting down, because there is a man coming up the drive right now with some papers." And there was, the process server my lawyer had timed came to the door, polite as church, and he handed my wife an envelope, and he handed the other man nothing because he did not need to, because the other man's whole world was already in that envelope too. I will tell you what I felt. Standing in my own living room, watching that envelope change hands, because it was not what I expected. I thought I would feel triumph. I did not. I felt tired, and I felt sad. And underneath both of those, I felt something steadier than I had felt in 2 years, which was the simple, solid ground of a man who finally knows where he stands. The sliding was over. The truck had come back to me. My wife started to talk. Fast. The explanations stacking up the way they always had. The book club and the old friend and it's not what it looks like. And I just held up one hand, gentle, and I told her there was nothing left to explain to me, that I had been listening to her on the phone for 40 nights already, and that she should call her lawyer in the morning because she was going to need one. Then I picked up my daughter's backpack off the floor where it always lands, and I set it on the hook where it belongs. Because somebody in that house still had to keep things in order, and it was going to be me. What came after was not loud. The law rarely is. It is paper, and it is patient, and it grinds in one direction. There was a day in a courthouse, months later, that I will not dress up for you, because the truth of it was almost boring, and that is the point. No shouting, no big speech, just my lawyer laying down a list of dates and dollars in a calm voice, and the investigator's clean photographs, and a record that showed a man who never moved out, never emptied an account, never lost his temper, who just kept driving and kept his kids steady and kept everything written down. There is nothing for the other side to fight when the man across the aisle never gave them a single ugly moment to point at. My wife's lawyer tried to paint me as controlling, the way they do, a man who tracked his wife. And my lawyer said, calm as Sunday, that I had not tracked anyone, that I had simply come home, and that a man is allowed to come home. The room got quiet after that. You cannot make coming home to your own family sound like a crime. Because the money was documented, every dollar of it on a list. The court treated those $9,000 the way my lawyer said it might, as marriage money, spent on something that was not the marriage, and that tilted the division my way. Because I had never moved out, never touched the joint account, never once lost my temper where anyone could see it, I was the steady one in every record that mattered. Because the truck was mine and stayed clean, I kept the thing that earns, and I am still driving it, still feeding my kids with it. And because I had kept a calm, steady home through the worst stretch of my life, and had protected my son instead of using him, the children's main home is with me. Their mother sees them. I have never said one cruel word about her in front of them, and I never will, because they did not betray anybody, and they get to keep loving their mama without me poisoning the well. The man, the old flame, did not get the fresh start he came back to town for. The thing about a man who will move into another man's house while that man drives all night is that he is not built for the hard part. And when it got hard, he was gone. He left town again within the year, looking for the next easy chair. My wife found that out the way a lot of people find these things out, far too late, after she had already set fire to the one house that was actually warm. My little girl took it the hardest, the way the youngest always does, because 9 years old does not understand custody or community property. It only understands that the shape of home changed and nobody asked it first. There were some nights she cried for her mama, and I held her and told her that her mama loved her and would always be her mama. And I meant it, because she did not do anything wrong and she did not need to carry 1 ounce of the grown-up mess. One night she asked me, small, if it was her fault for asking about the dog that time. And it took me a second to even remember the morning at the cereal bowl, and then it about broke me in half. I got down on the floor with her, and I told her that nothing, not one single thing, was ever her fault. That grown-ups make grown-up choices, and kids just get to be kids, and that the only job she ever had in this family was to leave the porch light on. And she had always done that perfect. She believed me, the way kids do if you stay steady long enough. And staying steady, I have learned, is the whole job. It is the only job that ever really mattered. She called me, once, about 5 months after it was final. She had heard I had picked up a better route, that the kids were doing good, that the house was paid closer down than it used to be. She said maybe we gave up too soon. She said the kids needed both of us under one roof. She said she had made a mistake, and her voice broke when she said it, and I believe she meant it. I let her finish. I have learned you let the whole load settle before you decide it is safe to move. And then I told her, with no heat in it at all, that I wished her well, that the kids loved her and always would, and that our marriage ended the night I heard a man laugh in my kitchen, and she told me everything was fine. I said goodnight. I hung up, and I went and turned off the porch light my 9-year-old had left on for me, the way she does every night I'm due home. And I stood in my own quiet house, and I slept like a man who had finally come off the ice and onto dry road. I think about that laugh sometimes. It cost me a marriage. It probably saved the rest of my life. And I think about the keys in my hand that night outside Amarillo, and how close I came to yanking the wheel, and how the only thing that saved me was 30 years of being told, do not panic, steer into it gentle, let it come back to you. Here is what I have left for you, and then I will let you get some rest. Black ice is the cruelest thing on the road because it gives you no warning at all. The road looks wet. It looks like every other mile, and a marriage can ice over the same exact way. Looking fine, driving fine, right up until you are sideways in the dark. If you ever feel that trailer start to step out behind you, the worst thing you can do is jerk the wheel. Do not drive home in a rage. Do not do the thing you cannot take back. Get quiet. Steer into it gentle. Find a lawyer. Find the truth. Protect the thing that earns and the kids who did not ask for any of this. And let the law do the heavy hauling. You will come back onto dry road, and you will be able to look your children in the eye the whole way there. If the person who knows your schedule by heart ever decides to use it against you, they have the cleanest shot there is. You cannot always stop that, but you can keep your head, your hands clean, and let patience and the truth do the work that anger never could. It keeps you out of the ditch. It keeps you out of trouble. And it lets you be the man your kids still get to be proud of. Take care of yourselves out there. Drive safe. And tell me where you are watching from tonight. I read everyone.